Hi everybody, I'm sure many of you would have heard by now that unfortunately on Sunday, Frenchy Cannoli, the king of hash, passed away. His wife Kimberly put a post up on Instagram on Sunday explaining how he'd passed away because of complications down to surgery. We were lucky enough to speak with Frenchy. We interviewed him for episode 18 of High on Homegrown, and we had a good hour and a half conversation with him. And he was such a cool guy, so down to earth, and so full of knowledge at the same time, but very humble too. He's very quick to say that the only reason why he is the king of hash is because of the farmers he chooses to work with. He was an actual legend. If you haven't seen his videos, you don't know who Frenchy is, then he's got his YouTube channel. You can go and check him out and stuff. So here's the video of the interview we did with Frenchy back in October. Us at High and Homegrown at Percy's would like to extend our condolences out to Kimberly, Frenchy's wife, and their whole family. They must be going through terrible times right now. We would like to dedicate this video to Frenchy, and even now we massively appreciate the fact that he took time to just come and speak to us about hash, and we had a real good time, man. It felt like sitting down with a good friend and talking about something we all love. And it's a shame that we won't be able to do that again. Rest in peace, Frenchy. You're an absolute legend, mate. There's not much else you can say other than that, really. So what you can do is sit down, relax, and check out this video or this audio, whichever way you're listening to it. Roll yourself a nice spliff of some sour diesel, if you have it, with some hash. And just remember Frenchy, the king of hash.
So here we go. Yeah. I'm Mackie from Percy'sGrowroom.com. We'll quickly introduce ourselves, and we have Temple Grower. You want to say hi to TG?
Yeah, hey Frenchy. I'm a Temple Grower up here in Saskatchewan in Canada. It was a pleasure and an honor to meet you.
Nice meeting you. Oh, you in Canada? We were wondering where you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm in the UK, and we also have Monkey as well. Monkey, you want to say hi?
Hey, Frenchy, how you doing? This is Monkey. I'm down here in the Southeast United States, hurricane country, man.
I really like your logo, man.
Hey, guys. Appreciate it, man.
So, Frenchy, it's a massive pleasure for you to be on the show. Thanks for joining us, man. Mm-hmm. You are known as like the hash king, the legend of hash, man.
Yeah. They make a big deal of me. It's a bit.
It's a bit embarrassing, one.
Almost. You know what I mean? It's like, because being a hash maker is so much like being a winemaker. I'm totally dependent on my quality come from the farmer. I'm 101% dependent. It's like a winemaker or like a Michelin star chef. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to be part of the growing cycle, to be able to bring the best into whatever you're doing.
So do you grow as well, Frenchy? You grow your own, right?
A little bit this year because of COVID. Normally, no, I don't have the time to take care of it. I'm really like a winemaker. I work with certain cultivar and certain vineyard, basically.
Yeah.
And it's mostly, for the moment, it's really Northern California regenerative farming.
We spoke to Swami Chaitanya, and he was talking about appellations when it comes to cannabis, so people know where the cannabis is being grown. Is that something you're interested in as well, something you're looking at?
I kind of, people thought I was crazy when I was talking about it a few years back, and now it's becoming really important. Yeah. And there is a first low sign. Appellation are in a game, and it all starts with the soil, which to a level, it's yes, there is no appellation that do not start with the soil, but at the same time, the soil became so important. If we don't give life back to the soil we have, we do not have much longer to on the planet. There is so many harvests basically that that we can have. So it goes beyond the appellation. It goes into the domain where regenerative farming is the future if we want a future.
Mm-hmm. We've spoken about that a lot this week.
Yep. Yeah.
We have a responsibility. We have a bigger responsibility towards the planet than most because we are connected with a plant that has the potential to change the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So you source all of your cannabis from organic farms, I assume, and then you make your hash out of it.
Yeah, small organic farm, only in the Emerald Triangle, most of them regenerative farming.
Awesome. It's a good stance to have, you know, supporting the smaller businesses and making sure that, because they can look after their cannabis better. You know, these smaller farms, they've got more love built into their plants.
I mean, it's very much part of my culture. As a Frenchman, if I taste something good, I want to know where it comes from because that's what created it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I travel for these 20 years in producing country, nobody really care much that I made the hash or the charas. What they wanted to know is where did I go to make it? The valley, the hamlet in the valley, is that what gave the value to the hash I was making? So when I came to California, it was the same. It was the land, the climate, and the genetic. But in Cali, it's not land race anymore. There is a breeder behind the genetic that should get the credit for the amazing stuff they have been producing. And there is an actual farmer behind the plant. It's not like farming in producing country where you just break the ground, you throw the seed at the rainy season, and you harvest 6 months later, basically. Here, there is a lot of love and dedication that come into growing those plants. So in my head, I really truly became like a winemaker. I work with cultivar and vineyard, and that's what defines the quality of what I do, which is why I'm fighting for my farmer, because they're the very source of me being a king.
Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Yeah, you are what you eat. That's the thing up in Canada too. You know, when we first legalized in 2018, they went for the big production model, but basically nobody could see or guarantee. Well, they can guarantee, but they couldn't see where their cannabis is coming from, and a lot of the cannabis probably wasn't, you know, made for what they or how they were growing it in these giant industrial warehouses. But then when you start scaling down, like we've seen lately here, there's more focus on the craft grows and the micros, and actually knowing where it's being grown and sourcing it from your own home province kind of thing, because you know there's those characteristics that I think that are lost in the corporateness of it all. So it's nice to see that
the corporate world, especially in Canada, went against the first law of dealing drug, because cannabis is still a drug. If you don't have fire, you don't sell. Simple. You know what I mean? So it's not how much you can produce, it's how much you can move. And that was a big mistake that they have learned. Hopefully they bring the legacy market into the game, because that's the people with the knowledge and the genetic.
And the practice.
For sure.
So I've seen, what were they teaching them? Little balls, the hash balls, temple balls, are they called?
The temple balls, yeah.
I saw one of those in the black pots, man. They're so well presented.
Beautiful,
they look
man.
beautiful.
So for me, the temple ball is as an homage, you say in English, to one of the most amazing hash craft that I have ever seen. In Nepal, they make temple balls that they call Royal Nepalese Temple Ball.
Right.
And they just don't make a big, beautiful ball without any blemish. From that ball, they can create a layer, a hard layer of 1 or 2 millimeter thick on the outside that protects the inside of the ball. It's like when you don't have packaging, you use resin to protect the resin. It feels like an eggshell. It feels solid, but it's kind of like the crust of a Parmesan cheese.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, like a cheese rind.
Create an outside layer to protect the inside and have a transformation happening inside that mass. It was like, so Temple Ball, it's really as an homage to that most amazing experience I had in Kathmandu.
Yeah. Well, do you want to tell us about that experience in Kathmandu?
So it's that guy invited me for a smoke. My English was really poor at the time.
All right.
The guy English wasn't much better than mine. And so he invited me at his house, and it's like small room, little ceiling, no really glass on the window, only wooden board, open, and with the family temple, and on the temple there was that ball. And he picked up that ball, so I could understand Royal Nepalese temple ball, because even in 1980, it was the myth already in Nepal. You know what I mean? People were talking about it, nobody had seen it, and nobody had smoked it. And it looks like, you know, a stone polished by the river. It's black, but it's not really black. It's really dull, almost grayish. And I had a hard time really understanding what he was telling me. And he started to make like little pokey hole over the circumference.
All right.
And talk and talk and talk. So it's like, we were not really sitting. We were sitting like Indian way, you know, you're
crouched.
Your butt is not really touching the floor. And I was looking closely at what he was doing, because it was pretty mysterious. And then when he finished poking it, he broke it, but he really broke the piece into like under my nose. It's the first time in my life that I was literally punched by the tear. I was on my butt. It put me on my butt, literally.
Wow.
And inside it was that crazy caviar-looking texture, black, purple, reddish type of color. It's like, wow. I don't remember smoking it. I don't remember the eye. The only things I remember is being punched by the terp. And I had not seen much charas at that time. I had just done a tiny bit in Pokhara.
Charas is where you rub the flour, right? And then you pick off all the stickiness off your hands.
Yeah, I mean, and it was amazing for me to see that resin can protect itself and age and get to such an amazing potential. That was the first time I saw an aged ash. It was like supposedly 10 or 12 years old. I can't remember exactly.
Wow.
So it wasn't long ago then.
That's like aged whiskey, that long. That's wow. That's amazing.
So do you make your own hash, like personally now, or do you have some guys working on it, like staff as a company, the way you produce it in the temple balls?
No, I make it myself with my apprentice.
Nice. So still crafted at home and sent out. Nice.
Handmade craft hash.
I roll each temple ball. I mean, it's I'm a small fan.
You see my picture there. There's
quality. So this is what?
I was just gonna say, there's a couple Yeah, there's a couple companies that are doing some kind of well, they look like, well, they're balls of hash. They call them Buddha balls, but they're similar to temple balls, I guess. So it seems like the hash
You
is
know, the name is not really important. The fact is that a ball holds in itself the power.
mm,
A temple ball does not smell. If you don't smell, you don't lose step.
right.
Everything is stuck inside. And that's the beauty of it. I think it's one of the best way to age hash. That's why I'm pretty dedicated to it outside the experience I just mentioned.
Fully understand that.
I was actually watching your video about how to make hash using those the bags and the washing and all that, and you mentioned that the kind of bud that you prefer is more fluffy because it gives the trichomes more room to grow. And I've always thought, you know, hash, people who would like to make hash like a hash plant, essentially, for lack of a better term, I guess, those really, really stocky, resinous, dense kind of indica type growth ones. But that seems, like you said, it kind of doesn't make sense because the buds will be so dense that once you get them into the water and they spread out, then there wouldn't be as much resin. So yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive, but that absolutely makes sense. But what kind of, like, what do you prefer for strain wise, I guess, in terms of the hash that you make?
Imagine that for most of your life you have 6 flavors. Moroccan, but like you can recognize it. It's like they are very, very different. You have Moroccan, Lebanese, Turkish, Middle East, and outside Turkey, I have never seen much. Pakistani, Afghanistan, that is pretty similar. It's only the quality that really makes the difference. And then India, Nepal, the charas. That's very limited. When I came to America, I met for the first time diversity, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm so amazed by the diversity of terpene profile, from a super gazy sour-D to literally smoking a banana. It's like you smoke, it's like eating the fruit, is like, and everything is between. There is so many flowers that for me it's difficult to make favorites, but there is a few. I like the gas, so sour-D is one of the big one on my list, and it makes an amazing hash. Any hash maker that has touched sour-D would agree with me. Then there is a Pinot Noir from Aficionado Estates that makes the hash that tastes like milk chocolate.
Oh gosh.
Like, milk chocolate. I swear to God.
This is crazy. Chocolate hash.
You smell it, it's chocolate.
Beautiful.
Then there is a black lime that is very much like sour tangy, that 50% sour-D gas and 50% sweet lime.
I'm going crazy here, man. You know, I love hash. I fucking love hash, right? But there's a problem being in the UK. It's illegal. And you can't get hash, man. There's no good hash in this country anywhere. You have to leave the country to find the good shit. And you're here talking about this one tastes like milk chocolate. And this one is like crunching a banana. I'm like, oh gosh, man.
How old are you?
I'm in my mid-30s.
Okay. So when I left France, I was 18 years old. I left because not only I wanted the freedom and I was really crazy about traveling, but to be able to get to the quality. The quality you want is not for sale anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
The quality you want is the stash of the local.
Yeah.
If you want to have that,
Absolutely.
you need to make it yourself. That's what I did for 18, 20 years solid traveling. I traveled in producing country. I stayed 3-4 months with a local making my own because what I wanted wasn't for sale. Now, in California, not only I have crazy diversity, but what took me months living like a crazy maniac in a mountain cave and stuff, I can make it in a day. You know, I mean, now I can actually share my stash that I would have never thought would be possible. I would have never sold my stash. I would smoke it with people, but it was just too precious to share. Now it's as precious, but I can make quantity of quality. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, come a long way.
All right, we're a grow room, so we have a lot of first-time growers up there, and we're always talking about hash. If we had a new grower come in and wanted to go ahead and make a run of hash, how much bud should they have on hand for a reasonable run with hash to have a reasonable year? In other words, how much to make it worth the work?
You can always make it work well. You have your trim already, and you have basically it goes from 3% to 25% that I have experienced return.
Okay.
I look at an 8 to 12% return to be in a good zone.
Right.
Anything about over 15 start to be really interesting. When you get into the 20 return, you want to lock down that genetic and that farmer.
Okay.
But your quality is not only dependent on the genetic, it's totally dependent on the harvesting time. Your farmer has a 3 days window to give you filled trichome gland. If you harvest too early, 2 weeks early, which happen often indoor,
a lot,
you have the trichome gland, but the resin is not yet formed inside while you have the cannabinoid. The closer you come to the peak cycle of the flowering cycle, the more resin is formed inside the gland. When you come into that 3 days window, that's what makes a 6-star melt. You need to get to that level of ripeness of the flower to have your gland really filled up with resin.
Yeah.
So how would you go about identifying that? Is there a particular stage of the trichomes which you're looking for before you harvest for hash?
You have to understand that as a grower, you're growing flower. You are not growing trichome. Trichome is a defensive system that the plant produces to protect itself. And in that resin gland, it's poison. It's like heavy duty chemical arsenal that will never touch the plant because it's not good for the plant. It has nothing to do with the main metabolism of the plant, which the flowering cycle is part of. So you cannot look at a protuberance that produce secondary metabolite and determine the peak of your main metabolism. However, the peak of your main metabolism define how much resin is formed inside the gland. So if you could see inside the gland, you could tell if your flower is ripe. But because you grow flower, it's better to just look at your flower. In that 3 days peak window, the bracts are all pumped up. It's like the plant express it.
Yeah, you know? It's like it oozes juices. It's oily, greasy, resinous, you know.
That's what we always say to new growers too. Like once you think it's ready, wait another week. And then when you've waited another week, maybe wait another week.
If you're a hash maker, ask your grower because most of you guys grow indoor. You have an amazing, actually, indoor culture. I have been really blown away. Just ask your farmer, how many harvests do you do a year? If he does 5, it's not good for you. It has to be 4. If there is a 4 harvest a year, there is a good chance for you that the guy is really harvesting at the peak of the harvesting cycle.
Right.
If he does 5 cycles a year, he's cutting corner by 2 weeks to be able to have that window.
Yeah,
but
it's pushing it for sure.
That's what the market asks for at the same time, in California at least.
Yeah.
So it's like...
Here too, there's always the early croppers because, you know, people want to get their product to market.
They want light raising ground, they want green,
and most people don't
plant.
Yeah, and your average customer, especially in the legacy market, you know, before there was all these, you know, the connoisseurs and all the information we have, most people were happy just to get weed that got them high, and that does do the job. But like you say, there's much more to it to actually to bring it to its proper genetic potential. So
yeah, and when you grow for hash, it's very much like growing grape to make wine. You need to wait for that peak window where all the sugar, all the power is right there, and take it from the plant at that moment and lock it down.
Right.
So after you've harvested, is there a particular method you dry with to make sure that you preserve as many of the terpenes as possible?
Yes, harvest at night. In the middle of the night, like outdoor sun-grown plant.
Yeah.
After midnight, they don't produce terp anymore. They lock down. There is other function of the plant that come into play. If you harvest at that time, you save a lot of terpene. If you do it during the day, if you smell it, you're losing it.
Right.
And as a hash maker, the name of the game is to lose as little terpene as possible. So harvesting at night is a very good way. Then you have the choice. Do you want to do live resin, which would be very much like making charas in India? Or do you want to work with dried and cured material, a curing of 3 months minimum, and make hashish?
Okay.
That's
more than I thought, actually. I never considered 3 months cure, but that's going to make it. That's going to make it more smooth, more terpy, more rich.
It's
bring out
during
all the
3 months of cure. The chlorophyll transform into sugar.
Okay.
So when you wash the plant and it's just dry, you're going to get a lot of chlorophyll that you cannot get rid of. You will have a shade of green in your hash. You won't be able to taste it, but you will have it. The closer you come to the 3 months window, the lighter the green coloring, and you reach a stage where you can actually wash it away. And then when you reach to the 3 months, there is no more. The water is gold, literally. And the terpene at the same time transform. There is a polymerization, a bonding of the polymer. You may lose a lot of terpene, like up to 80%, but the terpene profile that you have at the end of the curing is very different from the just dry and live.
Yes.
And the Pinot Noir that I told you about, live resin is like a field of flower with a hint of lavender. Okay? You wait 3 months, you have chocolate.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you may
What a
lose,
difference.
but it's not the amount of terpene. I mean, the amount of terpene that you have count, for sure. But the wow and the uniqueness of the terpene profiles that you can get sometimes is worth the loss, because you have something that is so damn unique.
I understand.
And that's why it's like, what is better? You can't say. It's just not the same product. It's like
Yeah.
going in India and smoking charas, or going to Afghanistan and smoking hashish.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I was reading this article about, I'm not a chemist by any means, so forgive my not great chemical terminology, but there's the monoterpenes and the sesquiterpenes, and they were saying that these monoterpenes that, like you said, those lavender smells that you get out of the fresh bud, they're so volatile and they just react so quickly that, yeah, you lose them, but they do, you know, they have their the pathway that they go through, and they change into different molecules, and then you end up with that very, very unique, but you can only get that by properly curing and everything, right? So it's important.
You may lose. There is the whole drying, curing, there is stuff happening in the terpene because it transforms terpene. And the sun oxidation does something also to the terpenes. That's why when you analyze the traditional hash and the flowers that was used to make the hash, you find compound that doesn't exist in the plant. There is a transformation. So there is losing and degradation, but at the same time you transform. It's like the cannabinoid. THCA is not the same than THC and CBN, and it's a whole degradation of it. But when a degradation, it's a transformation that bring on the table an amazing cannabinoid or a new rare monoterpene. Well, is it really a degradation and a loss when you gain for it?
That's right. Yeah.
It's just make it different.
It's different.
Absolutely.
And so it comes down to the personal preference really at that point. But yeah, the terpenes, I'm really glad that there's, like, we were talking with Swami, he was very into the terpenes and stuff, doing his judging at the Emerald Cup, and it seems like THC's always, and CBD lately has gotten all the attention, but nowadays terpenes and flavonoids and things, and these minor but not so minor compounds are getting much more attention, and well-deserved attention too, because, you know, like I was saying in the interview yesterday, THC, you're going to get THC and CBD and those cannabinoids in your flower. Like that's what it is. The molecule THC is the molecule THC, but the subtle differences in the effects and everything, and those flavor profiles come from the terpenes and the flavonoids. So it's really, really important to properly preserve them and encourage them, I guess.
They carry the cannabinoid in your blood system. They go through a cell wall to lock down in the cell. It's like, and while they don't lock to the endocannabinoid system, they lock to systems that are connected to the endocannabinoid system. So the entourage effect, while it doesn't go through all the CB1 and CB2 receptor, is still connected to it. So if, let's say, it's super apparent when you do edible. So I always ate hash because the greatest writer in French literature were from the Club of Hashishin. My favorite of the favorite, all of them. When I started to smoke, I thought it would be very cool to eat hash. I mean, my heroes were literally eating hash. So from a kid, we had a recipe that lasted since now. We would prep some hash into alcohol, like a cognac, a brandy, a rum, a tequila overnight, and then prepare a strong coffee with sugar. We would add the mix to the coffee, a dollop of cream in a little espresso cup. And during COVID, like basically 40 years later, I thought it would be cool to share. And I did, and I was sharing also a traditional bang recipe with a bunch of spices. Okay, and I didn't put that much weed in that recipe, And it was like really a trippy experience. That made me remember actually the bang in India that I had a little bit forgotten, that it wasn't just eating hash.
Yeah.
So I tried my hash, what I call gizos, my recipe, but I added spices like pepper, cardamom, and vanilla stick, and to see what it will do.
Frenchy, you need to open a cocktail bar, man.
Sounds like coffee house to me, man.
No, I need to check that shit out.
No, but it's like I want people to be aware that you can totally transform the experience. I can make it more relaxing. I can make it everything I want, because there is the terp from the plant, but then the spices and herbs that you can add to an edible, that's a lot of power. Totally transform the experience.
Yeah, the whole experience.
Hey,
like
just the
making
coffee
mead.
idea makes me want to make my own hash. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, you know.
Dude, with chocolate. I tried the recipe. Instead of putting ash, I did hot chocolate. Oh,
Oh,
So give me the bad news now. How many
Oh.
ounces of weed do I need to start this process with?
You can start with whatever you want. It's like if you have flowers, the best is or to make a coconut oil, or to collect the gland and go straight from the gland.
Yeah. About how many ounces should I start with? Do I need a half a pound? Can I do it with an ounce? Do I need a pound?
You can do it with an ounce.
You can do it with an ounce.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
what
So
method would you
anybody can
use
do
to
it.
make it there? Would you use like ice water hash?
Before I use water hash, I did dry sieving.
Yeah, I like dry hash.
I mean,
Dry
and
ice.
it's super simple. Just pick up a Pyrex container, not too flat, like a little bit with some wall aids. You put your flour into a cheesecloth, like or a nice sieve material, a bit fine. You close the lid and you shake. And you collect after shaking, you got a plenty.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, see, like sieving is simple. Or if you really want to get everything out of it, there is some cool recipe to make coconut oil. And the coconut oil mixed really well with the alcohol and the coffee and the chocolate and the other spices.
Yeah.
Ooh,
That sounds
sounds
good.
like
Man,
an
that makes me get some ideas. We just got some snow up here in Saskatchewan, so that hot chocolate sounds like a really good idea.
I saw that you had snow.
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yes.
Now, you're describing hash as being fine wine. Does hash need to be stored any special way to keep it just right?
Yes, it's because I have experienced a lot of different aged hash, from just made to, I think the oldest one was 12, 13 years old.
Whoa.
And everything in between. And I've seen stuff happening during the 18, 20 years that I spent in producing country. I've seen stuff happen. I've seen transformation of resin, where the resin literally absorb the contaminants that you have. Like in India, you do a hand, when you do really clean and you just caress the plant and try to take most of the contaminant from your hand, you do 5-7 grams a hand, maybe 3 times a day. And every time when you unstick your hand, you have your little chunk of ash that we put it normally in between thick plastic sheets, really flat, so that only the outside, the very, very thin part could have contact with oxygen. So you have really a thin, almost transparent little pancake. And you can see really well contaminant into it. Not even when you're really careful, the cream of the cream, you have always a little bit. You look at it 3 months later, it's gone.
Wow.
So I mean, it makes sense. The resin is corrosive. The terpene highly corrosive. Anything that is not resin and terp and cannabinoid is going to be absorbed, and like the membrane, everything. It's like making wine.
Yeah.
You don't have the matrix that created the juice and the sugar. You cannot make the wine. When you make hashish, when I pressed all those glands together inside that mass of hashish, there is that matrix that may transform two toxic compounds into 155 medicinal compounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Uh-huh.
if you take this of the equation, when you extract, when you take only the resin, there is nothing wrong about it, but you leave behind a big part of the equation. However, you step into an amazing new territories with diversity, the name of the game, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is loss, but you gain a lot by going further. I'm just making wine, you know what I mean? I don't refine. You can make many different alcohol from grape, up to 99.9% ethanol.
Yeah.
But to make wine, you need the matrix that created the juice and the sugar. So my niche is really that little part of what the concentrate world is.
Yes.
Wow. I'm just baffled, man. Like, wow. Hash.
It's important, man. There's so much emphasis, it seems, these days on the concentrates and the shatter and the butane extractions and stuff, but like hash is as old as cannabis, really.
Yeah.
And it's some of the, like you say, the best hash is the best, period. You don't get much better than that. So
the effects are so different, and I experience it really when I smoke the rosin that I squish from my ash. You smoke the ash, especially here where there is not as much a difference between the buzz of a live resin like charas in India and hashish like Afghanistan. It's somewhere in between that little speedy eye of the Himalayan genetic towards a more relaxing effect of the Kush mountain. Right. So you have that feeling of really comfortable warmth, like a warm blanket around you in front of a fireplace. But anything you want to do, there is energy behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds
perfect,
man.
The buzz lasts a long time. That's that well-beingness type of feeling that lasts. When you smoke the rosin, it bongs you, it's speedy, and it's short.
Yeah.
Like nothing to do with it. I kind of like it, don't get me wrong. Huh? I'm a hash smoker, but in the afternoon, instead of having an espresso, well, I rather have a dab or two of rosin.
Well, it's like hash
too,
is coffee, and rosin is like an energy drink.
Espresso, yeah, something.
You can't
it's like a Red Bull.
It's another world. It's another buzz. It's so many more potentials that are opening. Just because you squish with temperature and eat, you can make pure THCA, you can make bloody sauce, you can go crystal in your terp. Dude, it's like, it's crazy what they do.
Yeah.
In BHO, I have a lot of respect for extraction. I come from south of France, from the perfume industry. You know what I mean? So. Yeah. You have to remember that BHO is the ultimate tool to preserve the most volatile terpene. And when you have a master playing with BHO, I have smoked sauce. I smoke sauce of flowers that I know super well, that I've made hash with it for a minute. the guy reached such a level that I need to know what does he has that I don't. What's the difference between my hash and his?
Mhm.
Because as much as I like my hash, the dude is putting a terpene profile on a table. It's a flower. Concentrate form. It's like, whoa. Right? So you
There's
can't.
some wizards out there for sure.
Yeah, we have to learn to appreciate the diversity that the cannabis trichome gland offer us. And if you look at the alcohol industry, I make often the comparison, not only because I see hash like wine, but the whole concentrate industry is very much like the alcohol beverage industry because of the diversity. So in the beverage industry, have you ever heard of anybody comparing wine to any type of hard liquor or beer or any other alcohol for that matter?
Or
and
cognac.
anybody telling you that making whiskey is the best tech and making tequila sucks? You know what I mean? It's like we don't have that appreciation of diversity because we are so into my stuff is the best.
Yeah,
right.
It's a big problem.
Maybe it's the best, but why don't you take the time to appreciate the craft and of the other products that are put on the market?
Right.
Especially that if you don't do BHO, everybody is actually looking at BHO because they're the one who brings the next and will bring the next and will always be at the cutting edge of the development of concentrate. If you're into concentrate, guy, you really have to understand that. So a little respect to all the crafts that create all those amazing products, even ethanol, dude. Ethanol, you can bring some serious medicine on the table, really full spectrum. And yeah, it's not something that I would smoke, but I have a lot of respect for what it brings on the table because it's amazing to be able to capture so much. You know what I mean? And that's what we should focus on instead of really.
Yeah, encourage people to do their thing. You know,
I wonder if that's almost just a function of the cannabis culture. It seems like we kind of run into that with growers too, right? Everybody's growing technique that they use is the best. And if you don't use my hydro with these nutrients and that,
then your plant's gonna die.
then it sucks. It can't be good. It's like, well, everybody's doing it good. It's just, you got to appreciate it.
If you're a grower and you use hydro and you use chemical nutrient, you're part of the problem.
There is that argument,
Okay. We've been having this discussion recently.
You have to remember that, dude. And because you're into the cannabis industry, it takes another level of responsibility. You have to be an example.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You have to be a role model, and it's not fun, believe me. But it's like, it's the name of the game. At that level, we need to be role model to the rest of the planet. And if you grow, even more so, you need to be careful of what you use. You need to be careful of how you get rid of the stuff you use. You need to be careful of everything you use because it has a strong impact on the planet, and we can't
keep our
afford
carbon
it
footprint as low as possible. We don't want to hurt the planet anymore.
Holistic growing is important.
It's something that which I think we don't push enough on Percy's. I think we need to start heading more in that direction of being having less carbon footprint and having less impact on the environment. Organic, if you can, try and encourage people to do that.
Local based,
as much as possible.
Prohibition doesn't help also because even if you want,
exactly.
it becomes a little obvious sometimes. You know what I mean? We often do stuff during prohibition. It's because it's prohibition. It has changed our life and changed the whole evolution of the plant. Actually,
it does.
Yeah. That's unfortunate, but we got to do what we can. But it is important to at least keep that in mind, and
or at least think about it. You know, I mean, how could I get better at that?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to some people in some dispensaries around the United States about that carbon footprint problem and the pollution problem we even have with dispensaries and legally. I mean, there's so many regulations. Any kind of cannabis in the United States that's sold legally has to be in child-proof packaging, which is all plastic and Ziploc and everything else, and not recycled. It's usually just thrown away. But there's nothing we can do about it right now because it's federally illegal and we can't cooperate through states, and it's just tough. I'm just hoping that maybe if our political society changes, maybe if it's favorable to cannabis, we can actually start pushing this in the open, in the clear, to encourage people.
To unschedule it. It's very simple. The states need to unschedule it, and the plant is not.
Yeah.
Then we can medical.
Then we can move that plant into the community garden like the tomatoes and grow it like it should be grown in the sun. You know.
Well, you wouldn't be able to do that much in England.
No, that's true. But I'm in the U.S. We could do it here.
You could have greenhouse. You could. It's another world when if it become legal. If it become legal, it's a world market.
Yeah.
Everything will change. Morocco, Lebanon, Afghanistan, India, all those countries would be on the table. Millennium of culture.
Yeah.
Experience. You know what I mean? It's like it would be really different. Cannabis is the plant the most cultivated and the most smuggled and the biggest contraband there is on the planet. Because there is so many people who are smoking it. So it's like it's maybe time to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening. Look at the world. It's still on Schedule 1, it shouldn't be even talk as medical, and the world over is legalizing.
Yeah.
Nobody care anymore that it's on Schedule 1, more or less.
Time to change it.
Hopefully, it will be not Schedule 1 much longer. Hopefully, you know, we only believe it when we see it, right, Frenchy?
I believe it's going to happen in 1 to 3 years max.
Exactly.
I was hoping with that this election.
Yeah, you're right. Because if they do change it, it's possible within that 1 to 3 years that for whatever reason it could be rolled back or something like that, or at least regulated strongly. So I'm with you. Hopefully, within the next 4 years, we'll know our final trajectory in the U.S. at least, and then if we free up the U.S., hopefully that'll help the rest of the world to make their own choice at that point.
The dominoes are falling, man.
Schedule 1, it's
we got to get it off the Schedule 1.
Therapeutic plants, they can put it maximum on Schedule 4. But lavender is therapeutic. There is a bunch of plants that are therapeutic. You know what I mean? It's like it's another ball game.
Yeah.
I know Mexico is thinking about legalizing in the December coming up in this year, and being in Canada, we've already had it legal. So maybe being sandwiched between two legal countries will.
Yeah, but in Canada, you don't have rainforest tropical condition, high desert tropical condition. Dude,
very true.
Mexico, they're going to kill it. They are.
Yeah.
They have land race that have a world reputation, and they have everything as long as climate and space goes.
Right. I've been reading articles that say, they're going to be the world authority on cannabis.
They will be a big player.
They'll be a big player. They've been in the market forever.
If they play well.
Yeah.
Yeah, some real Mexican. I never had real Mexican weed, so that'd be awesome to get some quality stuff.
Yeah.
The first real flower brand that I ever saw was in Mexico. Oaxaca, Punta Roja blacks.
I've heard Punta Roja.
Burgundy, big, fat bud with like with a branch, a little smaller branch on the side. Oh la la. It's like, that's weird. Oh.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Soon, hopefully, man. Like we'll bring that all back into the limelight like it once was. Yeah. It's exciting times.
It is because the world is changing and the world really need to change at the same time. Like we have 60 harvests. Have you seen the movie Kiss the Ground?
No, somebody else told me about that the other day, though.
All of you guys watch this movie. If you're a farmer, if you grow, doesn't matter what you do, watch that. It's like, wow.
Kiss the ground.
Yeah.
Kiss the ground, yeah.
Put
Sweet.
it on the queue
Sounds
for
good.
sure.
I'll check it out.
And it's all about if we lose the life on the earth or the soil, that it became dust, we're dead.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that makes this planet alive is a billion years evolution between living organism and a planet. Why that planet is so different than any other one on the galaxy? It's because of that little crust of soil, living soil.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not alive anymore. We're all dead. Everything, the planet is gone.
Yeah.
1 foot of
So,
soil.
We gotta get that balance.
and we can do it. It's not that very difficult either. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty creepy. It's super
Yes.
uplifting. At the same time, that is like, oh wow, we're so much in the shit.
It's scary, but there's work to be done, and there's good. Like I watched a documentary last night about they reintroduced the wolves back into Yellowstone now, and people were iffy back in 1995 when that happened, but 20 years later they're updating us now, and they said that the whole ecosystem is just healthier than it's ever been.
Yeah,
There's
it's
more
so
birds,
important, isn't it?
there's more everything, right? So bring
you
that
find
balance
balance?
back. Yeah.
No, it's like we have too much CO2. We don't know what to do. You lock it in the soil. That's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But to do that, you need the living organism in the soil to do the trick. That becomes a source of food. You know what I mean? It's like it's all about that life in a soil to a level that is pretty.
It's amazing, man.
To a certain level, because it's the beginning of life, and it's been important from day one of the evolution of the planet, and it's as important
Right.
today. You know what I mean? It's
That's the beginning of the food chain itself. Is
Yeah,
the top layer of soil. Without that, everything collapses completely. Yeah. Crazy stuff, but it's true. And you're right. I mean, I'm guilty of, like you say, I'm still growing with salt newts because unfortunately I'm an illegal grower. I'm in a place where I can't grow legally. That does restrict me quite a bit. But
Of course.
every time I get on an interview like this with you or some of the other people who've been on there, and they all keep telling me I need to switch to organic. So
it's like it's same for me, Monkey Man. It's the same. It's like after this,
I'm going to actually have to go down that path sooner or later. You know.
Yeah, it's like now after this interview, it's like, I feel like I need to go full living organic and make fucking hash, man. I'm telling you, it's like this interview changed my life.
He makes a good point of hash. I'm just listening to him break off a piece of that hash and put it in the whiskey and make coffee with it. And the more I'm thinking, like, man, that sounds good. I think this Frenchman can teach us a few things.
Oh, for sure.
Like you guys said, though, it is difficult. Prohibition. Like I have a giant pile of used soil balls in my backyard that I'm going to transition into my compost pile, and
I can't,
do
that around
cops
here.
aren't exactly. They're not looking in my yard. But if somebody did in a legal area, then they'd be like,
I have a lot of people, farmers that grow indoor no-till.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
That's the ultimate for sure. That's a great way to.
That's the way I want to go.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet, but
it's cheaper. You do only composting, and you can do it with the stuff that you get from daily life at home. You don't bring stuff and take out stuff that the neighbor is really wondering what the fuck is going on. And you save tons of nutrient and stuff like that. The plant is healthier, basically. So
there's a few producers here that are
starting to switch in and actually setting back and being more discreet. But it's an extreme step to go into no-till. In a grow room is like that you want normally pristine. It's not going to be the same feeling, but it doesn't smell the same also. When you come into a no-till room, the smell is nice.
When it's that earthy, humid kind of
sweet.
It's not that the smell is bad, but there is a metallic edge of it that is not natural. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain.
The smell of a forest after a rainfall. It's the best way I can describe it. The forest floor after a rainfall.
What do they call those? Actinomyces. I always get this wrong. Actinomyces. There's that one bacteria that that gives earth its earthy smell, and that's, you know, they say that gardeners are happier people because they smell, and that gives us a dopamine boost and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
You know exactly that smell. When I describe that smell in your mind, it switched on immediately. You know that smell when you break that soil and you get that burst.
No, it's like it goes beyond that. You know, what we call the terroir in French, it's the land, the climate, the genetic, and the farmer community, but it's also the taste of the place.
Right.
Okay? That you have the characteristic of the place in a wine you drink, for example, or a cheese or whatever product. But it was something that had never been really scientifically proven. It was mostly in the mind of the Frenchy, of the Frenchman. But not so long ago, like a few years back, they started to realize it's actually the microbial life in the soil, breaking the nutrients the way they break it, that brings the characteristic of the land into the fruit or the plant. And that's why you can have two terroirs that are separated by a little dirt track, and it's totally different. It's not only the very structure of the soil, it's the life in the soil that makes that diversity.
I think
when you do farming, if you want the good stuff in the plant, well, it's all that microbial life that breaks the food. And you can be sure that the plant really wants it, because the plant is giving sugar to be able to get the food from the microbe. So you cannot overfeed, you cannot make mistake. You have that living buffer that control everything that the plant actually wants, and it's in relation with, they talk to each other literally. So they make for the plant, and the plant give whatever reward back. It's you have much less to do, you know what I mean? And your plant will be much healthier and fully express themselves, even if it's indoors. There is a fuller expression of the plant.
I totally agree. It's kind of like, you know, taking a French recipe, I guess, that was developed in France using French ingredients. Somebody in France probably is going to be able to make that dish a lot better than that same French person in America using the American ingredients, just because of what you say. All of the subtle differences of, you know, the carrot's a carrot, but a carrot from France is going to be different from a carrot from America, coupled with the subtleties of the chef himself, that you know, he has his little ways of doing things that you can kind of equate that to the I guess the native microbes and how they specifically break down each of the components of the soil in their own way that's best for that area, versus just a blanket, you know, generic microbe kind of thing. Jeff Lowenfels talks about native microbes in a compost probably being like using inoculants in your compost that come from Europe and stuff in Canada probably aren't the best, because they might not be suited for our climate here, whereas the native microbes will be that much better.
When you aren't genetic, okay, I'm gonna go to India. In India, the plant can take the harshest climatic condition. Now it's super cold. During the day, it's tropical hot. It's at 8, 9, 10,000 feet high. There is so much water in the morning, you can take a shower under the plant, literally. I have never seen any mold, anything ever.
Right.
For the many years I made ash in India. And so it's like, for me, that genetic is perfect for Emerald Triangle. A lot of humidity, really hot at night, a little colder in the evening, and technically speaking, it would, but the health of the plant is not really defined only by the genetic. It's defined by the living soil. So that if you take a genetic in India, but you don't analyze the soil, and know your soil wherever you want to be, you don't know how well that plant is going to adapt to the climatic condition, because there is first an adaptation at underground that defines the growth of the plant. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Absolutely.
when you go into microbe, it goes way beyond, oh, that climate, we are on the same zone, the climatic zone,
just the latitude or whatever.
Afghanistan, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's way deeper than that.
Sure.
I suppose it's similar, you know, scientists are out there finding these tribes in the Amazon, but like uncontacted tribes who still live natural, not part of civilization. They're collecting their feces so they can do experiments to see what kind of gut bacteria they have. And that's going to be similar to getting the soil from India.
Some
taking it to
landrace
Cali
gut
to
bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're
Makes sense to me.
It does make sense. I mean, I've tried in my flower gardening days, I've tried to move wildflowers, and you think you're moving them in every condition that's normal, but sometimes you just can't reproduce things, and plants just don't grow. You know, you're doing everything right, just won't move. So I fully understand what he's talking about. Trying to move what the plant needs. Its microbiome would be a great thing to move. You tell me.
Oh man, you see, I'm going to do it now. We should be more environmentally friendly and encourage it more, I think.
cannabis is a. Sorry.
Because when you do that, you remind yourself to think about it. You know, I mean, it's just a state of mind where even if you're not perfect, you always think to get there, to do a little better. You know, I mean, it's already huge.
Right.
Sure,
I do everything I can.
intent.
Being a chemical grower, I mean, I compost my waste. I reuse cocoa as much times as I can, and then the rest of the time, when it's done, it usually goes in my outside garden. I mean, and then my runoff is always fed to my outdoor container plants. And so my impact is as low as I can make. I'm using rainwater. It's closed loop
Right.
system. So, but the
That's
next step
important, man.
is going full organic would be my next jump. So,
But you have to remember that the whole hydro industry is based on NPK, okay?
true.
That's the three elements that are left when you burn the plant to nothing, okay? So you're going to take a plant dead, you're going to burn it, you're going to analyze whatever dead residue there is to define the nutrition of a living plant. Okay? Think about it. How can you trust these people? It's fake from the beginning. And all this is to sell us the extra that we didn't use to kill each other during World War II. Super. Thank you very much.
That is the root of
You know what I
fertilizer.
mean?
That's it.
Yeah.
They made too much nitrogen. How do we get rid of this? Grow plants with it.
Call it miracle grow. Yeah.
No, and you will, as a grower, if you make your ash, it makes a huge difference because, like I say, the trichons are not part of the plant main metabolism. So it's the trichon glands are literally the history of the plant relation with the outside world. It's like a book. It tells you everything that the plant has been through with what's around it. So if you know, as a grower, when you know your resin also, well, you'll know a lot more about your plant that you would if you had not started to play around with it, to study it, study the trichon gland. I mean, know as much science as you can about the plant.
Yeah.
Because it changed really the game, especially for when you go into that trichon formation and cannabinoid formation and stuff.
It's important to understand the how, but also very important to understand the why in all of this, I think.
Because you can do different stuff. It's like if you grow flower and you want a lower THC amount, higher CBDA amount, or you want to go into the CBGA, when you know which cannabinoid form each other, which one form faster, well, you can play around with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's even at the farmer level to know your plant to that level. It has an impact.
Organic's just so much hard work, and there's bugs everywhere. There's bugs.
There's a
But
lot of
it's
info.
worth it, man. It's worth it. It's just like learning how to grow all over again. Really, it's a completely new technique from going from hydro to organics, because you really don't get many problems with bugs when you're in hydro.
It's true.
Bugs, I don't get like you got fungus gnats, but bugs are kind of an issue. People always say when you grow organic you get bugs, but if you do your IPM properly,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
right.
keep
Yeah.
your-
I'm
yeah,
just concerned
spray it
that
with-
it's like when I first start with the living soil and I bring it indoors, there's going to be time until it balances itself out to be that equilibrium between the good bugs and the bad bugs. So,
Well, if there's no bad bugs in the beginning, then you
No?
should be okay.
No,
Well,
I mean, you have to think that if a bug can attack a plant, the plant is not strong enough, is not healthy enough to deal with it.
right.
Simple.
Mhm.
Or you're in a condition where the plant cannot call a predator to that pest to deal
Yeah.
with it because the plant cannot. It's like it's not
Nothing
that
there, right?
the chemical arsenal that the plant has in a gland manipulates, can attract or repel insect. But there is some insects that after 300 million years of war between the insect and the plant world, that can deal with whatever the plant is throwing. In that case, the plant call predator to that
Well,
animal
and
to
that
deal
just
with
makes
it.
me think, right? You
So
say
that-
like it calls a predator, and it'll use pheromones for that, which it's a
Yeah.
smell. Would a certain attack from a certain insect encourage the plant to call another insect via pheromones, which changes the flavor of the buds?
Mm-hmm. Sure, of course it will.
Insect indoor as a preventive system works super good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
I
stress
use
the point
nematodes and I
it's
use
bad.
mites. Yeah, I honestly like, and I spray my stuff with, I use compost tea on my leaves and stuff, and you get the microbiota going. So it basically, yeah, you outcompete everything. There's the nematodes in the soil. Don't let the fungus gnats take off. If there's any soil maggots, and I mean aphids and stuff like that, you got to be clean too. You don't want to be rolling around in the grass before you come in, obviously, but same thing goes for synthetic grows too. But yeah, like bugs aren't really too big of an issue, and like pet or diseases or and mildew and stuff either.
Never bring anything
Yeah.
in your room if it has not been in heavy duty double COVID quarantine. Like, oh, nothing. And change your clothes when you go into your grow room.
Yeah.
You have something to change that is only when you go in that room. You change, you leave your clothes outside like this. You're sure that you don't have something that you picked up when you were walking around looking at stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Cleanliness
take a
next to
shower after
godliness.
mowing the yard before I even go near a tent. I won't even unzip a tent after I mow a yard. It's
Yeah.
not happening. I've just stirred every bug up on the property. That's just
Indoor,
inviting
man.
trouble.
Indoor gardens are like paradise for everything, plants included, but bugs.
Yeah, there's no
bugs love it,
no
too.
competition. You
Yeah.
let a bad guy in, they can go crazy.
Come on, if you was a bug, right, where would you want to live?
In
In a grow
Canada's
room?
garden indoor with
On
no
a
predators.
ganja plant? You can't
Absolutely.
blame them. It's just part of nature, man.
Well, it truly is. It's opportunity. That's all it really is. The bugs doesn't have anything bad for it. He's not trying to harm you. He sees a tasty meal.
So, Frenchy, you've traveled a lot, man. Have you got a book or something, or is there any plans for a book where you're gonna tell everybody about all these stories you've got?
I don't tell all my story to everybody. No,
Keep
it's
it
like
secret.
it was really crazy. You were the scum of the world, really, when I was young. Smoking hash was the most evil thing, the worst things you could do to yourself, and the most evil thing that you could do to everybody close to you.
Really?
Everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That literally you were killing yourself straight up, and you were hurting everybody that was close to you. To the point that my best friend, it took him 6 months before he finds the courage to come to me and ask me if I would try to smoke some hash with him. Like,
Right.
he was really paranoid that our friendship would be broken. And that was one of the reasons while I was traveling. You know, it's like when I smoked the first time, I was 17 years old. I was lost. I had been really abused by a loving education and the school system and stuff of the 70s. I was looking at a future that was absolutely scary. I just couldn't. I just couldn't. And then I smoked.
Right.
I smoked that Lebanese joint, and I was dreaming of the only things I wanted to do when I was a kid was traveling. All my books were travel, adventure, crazy people all over the world. When I smoked that joint, it was like tasting and smelling all these places that I was dreaming, the 1001 Night, Persia, India, North Africa, the Red Sea and stuff. And I had not been that happy since I was a little boy, literally, where you're so happy you run just for the joy of running. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You laugh just because fucking life is so amazing. It's like, dude, it's like you can tell me anything you want. Is that what I'm feeling right now? There is no fucking way it's going to be bad. You know what I mean? And the pressure of the society and my vision, my new awareness of the only things I really want to do is to travel, brought me to as soon as I was 18 years old, I split. And I didn't go back to France for 18 years.
Wow.
That's all I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care where I was going. I just wanted freedom, like nothing to hold me. I could wake up any day. I would meet anybody, anywhere. The guy would say, why don't you come here? Or why don't you? Sure. Why not? I had no destination. You know what I mean?
Awesome, man. So, and you just did that for 18 years?
Yeah, almost 20, until my daughter birth. I was 36.
Wow, man. And then you settled down in the US?
And my daughter was born in Japan, so we lived a little bit more in
Whoa,
in
so
Japan.
you traveled, man. You made your way all the way through Europe and then through China and everything. Is that what you did?
No. I did a lot around the Mediterranean Sea. Then I went to Mexico and I fall in love hard. The Mayan culture, mushroom, peyote, all that stuff. It's like, in my time, I was very much into Castaneda and shaman and everything magic and hallucinogenic was like very high on my list, actually.
Like ayahuasca?
Cool.
No, because that's more Amazonia and stuff like that. Me, it was mushroom peyote. Peyote was like, had been a huge discovery in Mexico.
Chichen Itza and all the McKennas.
Very, very, very special. And I wasn't really much into India because I didn't like the people coming back from India. I felt like they had a enlightened attitude that I brush spiritualities, that's it. I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm it. And through really a weird, not coincidence, but a weird happening. The person who is my best friend today, that was a close friend at the time, but I wasn't traveling with him, he was traveling alone. I was traveling with another person. We traveled a lot at that time doing the Yiking, the Chinese divination book where you use stick or coin to get an hexagram that give you an answer to your question.
Right.
It's the I Ching. right?
I Ching,
Yeah.
yeah.
We were repeating. We wouldn't do a move without asking. And the book told us that we should all three travel together. And we were planning to go back to Central America and Amazonia, and he was planning to go back to India. And so where do we go? And the guy is a big talker. And Frenchy always say you shouldn't judge before you know. We went to India, the three of us, $450 in our pocket, leaving our hometown, taking the train on our way to India. And I didn't like it for a good. It's not that I didn't like it. It was a cultural shock because I was really a foreigner. I had never been all over the Mediterranean Sea, Mexico. People look like me. I had mustache and a mouche when I was young. I looked pretty local. So India was like a very different, the culture, and it was a cultural shock. You don't fall in love at first sight with India like it had been for me in Mexico.
Right.
In India, to fall in love, you need to understand enough that you see the beauty of it, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, at least it was like that for me.
Uh-huh.
But I actually stayed a year in India the first time. At the end of the day, I have spent 8 years of my life in India, and it took me like a few years before actually I went back to Mexico to the Peyote Desert and stuff. So it's India changed a lot in my life. That spirituality with smoking charas that you have there. Like in the Western world, it was the most evil thing you could do. In Muslim country, it's part of the culture. It's not really well received and perceived, but you're just a bad boy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In India, it's spiritual. It's a religion. You dedicate every time you smoke, you dedicate your children to Shiva.
Shiva.
You're aware of what you do. It was like it was huge. The only thing that was bigger for me in my relation with the plants through my years was when I came to America, when people told me that the plant is actually medicinal. It's like, dude, you must be joking. You know what I mean? Like everybody, I smoked the first time because a medical reason. So at the beginning, I thought, it's all California, the legals, la.
Yeah.
They're talking the talk. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and like you can see people. It's like it's bloody true. It's like wow.
I was the same. Yeah, when I first started to see legislation happening in the States, and it's like for medical use, it's like behave yourselves, behave. But then you do start to see all of these cases that are solved by cannabis, and so many people coming off opioids and all these dangerous medications and moving to cannabis, and it actually works for them. It's like there's clear evidence it works.
Yeah, it changed everything. That's when it became more than making hash every year in producing country was my life.
Yeah.
But all my friends were making hash, and I made hash all my life. It wasn't really a big deal, but it was really much part of who I became. And then I come and talk to people like Perron that tell you that doesn't matter how much of a fucking stoner you think you are, baby, you were actually medicating yourself. And now I look at it, I'm smoking at 63 as much as I was smoking in my 20s in India. 7-10 grams a day of hash.
Nice.
So that means that I have been really truly medicating myself at a certain level that I need to be fully well and express myself and be who I am. So I always thought that I was really just a hardcore stoner, and no, actually, I have been medicating myself thoroughly and pretty well to a certain extent all my life without knowing it. It was like, you have no idea how much an impact I was old. I was in my mid-late 40s. I mean, it's like I had been smoking hash since I was 17 years old, living 18 years in producing country. When I reached that, when I'm that old, I realized that it's a medicine. It's, wow, it changed everything. And then I became even more passionate about knowing everything about it.
That's an important distinction, I think, because we hear the destigmatization of people who don't use and trying to get that concept across. But you're obviously the heaviest smoker, or one of them, a guy that smokes a lot of THC, but even you had the perception that it wasn't medical up until a point, right? And then the light bulb went off. So I think that's probably true for a lot of old school people.
We're all victims of propaganda to some extent.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, when you're 17 years old, the world is telling you that you're doing something really, really bad. It's a lot of pressure. I mean, everyone, you're a pariah. You're really living on the dark side of the moon. You know what I mean? And every cop is looking at you. You risk a heavy duty sentence for a little piece of hash in your pocket. It's intense.
Propaganda at the time. That's the way
it's hard to see that as medical. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, you were a hippie. You were trash. You were a bum if you smoked it. If you had anything to do with it. Yeah, that's right. They used to tell you it would make you go insane. They would show you the pictures on TV of the world spinning and tell you how it was out of control and it would make you be schizophrenic. And I remember being a kid being scared to death of that because my gosh, the commercials were horrible. No, you're as bad as you thought though when you first took that first hit. You're as bad as anybody ever said. It was easy. I don't know.
No, it's funny because in my family, only my mom's sister has been a little bit aware of my life. But after years of telling her, having her read shit and stuff about smoking hash, the first time I smoked hash in front of her, she looked at me like, that's all? Like she was expecting me to
transform into a bat and fly around the room like that guy.
And all that happened is to put a smile on your face.
I've been telling you, it's like, it's nothing.
Yeah, there's no needles. We're not like
nothing.
In a dark room.
It's like, and I smoked a second one, and it's like she realized. It's like, yeah, I guess it's like, it's not that intense.
He didn't turn into a bat and fly around the room.
But on the other hand, all my generation, when heroin was on the street, super cheap, and you couldn't smoke hash, you couldn't find hash on the street. There is 80% of the kids that I knew when I was in 18, 17 that are dead from overdose and AIDS. My brother in a number. It's like, it's insane. Right. Because, dude, you tell me that hash is so dangerous, I'm going to touch hero. You're telling me the fucking same. I don't trust you. You're bullshitting me. Well, but they didn't bullshit on everything. Yep. Some drugs are much more dangerous than others. And if you don't have that awareness, you can go deep into something that is really, really dangerous, where there is no return. Like.
Times are changing though, lads. We're getting there.
It's changing. It's like right now we're living historic moment. Look, 2020, dude. That's gonna stay in the history book forever.
It's
many reasons.
It's not that bad.
Paragraph on 2020.
What a year. What a year.
Not much has gone on this year, man. It's been pretty quiet. I don't know what you're about.
Quiet over there, huh?
It's all a blur, so it seems like.
That's why we need to be so aware. It's because everything is changing. And because of COVID, even more so. How many businesses are gone forever?
Yep.
How many businesses have changed forever because it's easier to work from home than filling up office in big city. People can live anywhere they want. It's like they need a new industries. They need new natural resource. There is a lot that is necessary to our survival. You know, I mean, it's not like we have a choice and time to play around. And you have like 14, 15 years old kids that are ready to fucking move shit because they're scared to death that they don't have a future. And they have the power of social media to do shit. You know what I mean? It's like it's changing. So to be part of what is happening now, it's huge. And me, I'll see maybe the tail end of it for you guys in your 30s to be right there in the middle of creating the next future. It's like, yo.
Yeah, so do you smoke flower at all, Frenchy? Or do you just...
Oh, I do. I actually mix flower, ash, and tobacco.
Oh, cool.
That's
Sounds like a Mackie creation
daily,
there.
my daily diet. On top of that, I dab. And in the morning, I eat a piece of ash.
Nice.
With my coffee normally, like but I don't go into prepping, and I actually should. I should prepare more of my geysers, like a huge, a nice jar that I let the alcohol and all the spices age, and I just pick up a little bit every morning. I've been lazy.
Can we find these recipes online?
Sorry?
Have you got your recipes for like your coffee, how to make the hash coffee and
yeah. It's on my IG. It's on my IGTV.
On Instagram.
Video how to make it.
Nice. That's definitely something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I usually just dump a bunch of infused coconut oil into my coffee, which also tastes really good, but that sounds a lot better.
Playing with the spices, it's like it makes for a very
it's kind of like
a bigger experience. There is more to it, like sensation and feeling. It's pretty interesting.
I've had a few different bottles of mead over my days, and they use different spices, different locally available, seasonally available stuff, and it's always unique, but always really, very full and very good. So a similar kind of experience, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So we should let you go, Frenchy. We've kept you for a long time. It's only ever supposed to be 30 to 40 minutes, but we always just chat shit for it.
We end up staying on for 2 hours usually, so yeah.
Smoke.
Anytime, and if you got question for your people, like we can do it again, and I answer question or some stuff like that.
Oh yeah, man, for sure. We'd love to have you on again, mate. Yeah.
I have a weakness for English people because I learned to speak English in England, and with all Cockney, like some heavy-duty accent. And they always told me, dude, if you speak English, who cares about the accent? You speak English, you should understand me. To actually speak English with a little...
You drive 10 minutes down the road and the accent changes in the UK.
So when people make fun of me, I always think of you guys, because my English is yours.
Well, can I ask you one last favor before you go? Could you say, this is Frenchy Cannoli, welcome to High on Homegrown. We'd love to have that for an intro for the show.
Welcome to?
This is Frenchy Cannoli, welcome to High on Homegrown.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Like H-I-G-H, hi. Like you get when you smoke hash.
No, with your...
Just give it a shot.
With your French accent.
What's your French accent?
Hey guys, this is Frenchy Cannoli with I Homegrown.
Yes,
straight
perfect.
from
Fantastic.
Nice. Beautiful.
Excellent, mate. Excellent. Couldn't ask more.
Thank you, man. It's been a massive pleasure. We'll be in contact. And please thank Kimberly for us as well.
I will. She's listening.
Cool. Thank you, Kimberly.
She's making fun of me.
Yeah, no, it was a great pleasure.
Big pleasure.
Legend.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We'll do it again soon. We'll be in touch, man.
For sure.
Definitely. Have a great time, guys.
Have a good one, Frenchy. Good night,
Yeah,
mate.
take it easy.
Ciao.
All right,
Yes.
man.
You're a cool guy.
He is a cool guy.
Fuck
Man.
yeah.
He knows more about hash than I'll ever know.
Oh
Yeah.
man, gosh, it's like now I just want to fucking make some hash out of some fucking organic weed.